Welcome to Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio with your host, K. William Spencer. This program is geared to help you see what thoughts and or beliefs are holding you back from being your best for yourself and those around you. Your life is only as good as your thoughts. For more information, visit our website at www.ytyrradio.tk. That's www.ytyrradio.tk. Now, here's your host. Hello and welcome to Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio. I am K. William Spencer, your host, as always. Today our guest is Sandra Patino, as her name was given, but for those who are in the United States and have a problem with Spanish names, Sandra Patino. She is the author of the book, The Epic Return. And she is also an author, a keynote speaker, and entrepreneur. She is the founder of the E3 group, and she does a lot of wonderful things. And as you'll find out through our conversation here, as you know, I don't really do interviews, I do conversations. Sandra's going to tell us about what she's doing now and what it's all about. And then we'll do a slingshot effect with her and go back in her life and have her tell you about, or tell us about, how she grew up, where, and that transition that got her from being what she used to be to who she is now. Very interesting story. So, Sandra, you there?
I am.
All right. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you here.
Thank you, William, so much. And thank you for the invitation.
Oh, it was my pleasure. In our pre-interview, you were very, well, you are, not were, you're a very warm-hearted person. So you can share that warmth with us and the caring. And actually, from when we spoke and you told me about your life, I found it to be something that I really, really wanted on my show, and I still want to do this. And at any time in the future, you have more to share with us, you're always welcome to come back.
Thank you so much.
Well,
Thank you.
You just have that personality. Sandra has a very interesting life, and I like to bring on people onto the show that have had these transitions, big transitions in their life. And it's not to discount anyone else that hasn't had anything as dramatic or, if you want to call it, awe-inspiring. But those people who have had these life-changing events that were very awe-inspiring, and how they did it, and how they came about knowing that I need to change, and how they went about doing it. It's those kind of interviews for me are very inspiring. It's not so much that I've experienced anything like this in my own life, but my life hasn't been actually prime and pristine either. So, anyway, tell us about the E3 group and what you're doing with that, and then we'll continue from there.
Great. Well, thank you for that introduction.
You deserve it.
Yes, thank you. I founded E3 Group because it came from my heart. Becoming an entrepreneur, it just happened because I just followed my heart, and it wasn't like a business decision. It wasn't a strategic decision. It was just something that I felt inside. And so E3 Group, it's an organization that inspires businesses and individuals embody their authentic identity. So, we help them unleash their true self through programs and lectures and even retreats. And so this is the third iteration of E3 Group, actually. The first one started back in 2008 when I started coaching people on how to lose weight. Mm-hmm. And then it became a nutrition consulting business. But now it's, we're still inspiring and guiding people, but in a different way, and it's more authentic to who I am now. And it's a result of my journey, the last 10 years of my life. So that's what E3 Group is.
Okay. And let's see, you're doing something in August. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, yes. So I'm going to have a retreat. It's in August 7th here in San Francisco in a beautiful, beautiful setting so that people can come and just be comfortable, be inspired, and discover who they really are. The title of the event is "Fall in Love with Yourself."
Interesting title.
Yeah, fall in love with yourself, because this is my main message. Self-love. Self-love leads to true freedom, and it's not a freedom that is about what kind of ice cream you can choose. True freedom to me is about inner peace, self-acceptance, and self-love. But you cannot accept yourself until you know who you truly are at the core. The essence of you, not what is identified with you, like your past, your title, your job, your salary, your possessions.
Yeah,
to me, that doesn't define somebody.
No, those are identifiers. People use those for, I have the latest iPhone, I have the latest and biggest and best SUV, I live in this section of town, and I have this title in my job. And it's for people who, I'm hearing this when what you're saying, and if you want to stop me, that's fine. But I hear this with a lot of people when they want to identify who they are with the possessions that they have. If you take away the possessions, they feel like their life is empty.
Correct. Even if they lose their job,
Mm-hmm.
they're lost.
Yeah.
They're lost. And I think that's the hardest part about losing a job. It's not the job itself. It's because they feel like they're losing their identity.
Yeah.
And so, but we're so much more than that. And that's what I discovered in the last 10 years of my life. I discovered who I truly am, what I'm capable of, and what I really want. And so I decided to create this retreat where we're going to discover, what the most important relationship in our life is. We're going to release, the false beliefs about ourselves. And we're going to unleash the love that we have within us. So, among other things. So it's just, I'm creating this space for the right people. This message is not for everyone, obviously. But I think the right people will really, really benefit. And again, it's in a beautiful setting. It's 3 hours long. Dinner is included. So it's just I'm creating this space for, as a gift, because I want to share my experience, my learnings, my journey with as many people as I can.
This is only 3 hours? Are you giving dinner too?
Yes.
Oh, I may come up from Mexico just for that one. No, I'm just kidding. But it's one of those things you said that is not for everybody. And I find in my own personal experience, it's for everybody, but it's not everybody's turn to listen to it. In other words, right. You can put it out there, and you live in a city of, say, 6 million people. You're not going to have 6 million people showing up for the seminar and dinner all at one time. Oh, boy, would that be expensive. But
yes.
Yeah, it's one of those things that when I got into doing metaphysical seminars and whatnot, I was hoping that, people would turn out I knew not everybody was going to do that, but I was hoping people would turn out more. But as you said, it appeals to people that are at that point in their life where they're going, I need a change, and I need to figure out how to do it. And you just come along at the right time, and people go, yes! Tell me
Exactly.
more. So that's what you're doing. So tell me, where is this in a setting? You said it's in a beautiful setting. Is it indoor, outdoor? I don't want to. If you want to tell us where it is, that's fine.
Yeah, it's indoors. It's at a Zen center in San Francisco.
Ah,
Yeah, so it has beautiful. It's a beautiful space. It has good energy. It's the right space. I don't like having events at a stuffy hotel room.
oh yeah, banquet
Where
halls suck.
I am inviting you and your heart and your soul into this space. So to me, the locations where I have my retreats are just as important as the material. You know, very very pampering, very nurturing, because people need this.
Hmm.
People are in pain out there. They are. And so, I want to be like the light at the end of the tunnel. I want to be that hand that reaches out to people. I'm not here to fix people's lives or to tell them how to live their lives. I don't do that. I respect people way too much, and I give them enough credit. We underestimate our power, our intelligence, our intuitiveness.
I'm going to
And
stop you
so,
right there for a hot second
yes, yes.
because you're saying something that I think is very important and most people don't really understand it. You're saying the key words, at least for most people that are in a similar business, even to yours. I was a holistic therapist. And even doing holistic therapies, I tell people this, I give them strong suggestions. I don't tell them what to do. In other words, it's your life. You came to me for answers. I'm telling you this is what you should do. And I give you reasons why. And what you're doing is you're giving people that are seeking the information that they need. And if you do it similar to the way that I do, which I'm assuming you do from our previous conversations, is that you give the suggestions and sometimes even with the questions so they can come up with the answers and they own the answers from there on instead of just telling somebody what. It goes back to that old fish, give a person a fish and they fed them for a day, teach them how, in your case, teaching them how to think. And then when they come up with the answers, they own it because it's something that means something to them. Am I right? This is how you're doing
It's
it?
part of it. It's part of it. It's
Yeah.
part of it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Teaching them how to fish. It's much more important. It's more beneficial to them than fishing for them.
Hmm.
Now, I speak from personal experience. Everything I create, everything I write, every blog, every single book, every single event, I speak from the heart. I speak from personal experience. I am not a researcher. I am not, I don't have a PhD. I speak from the heart, and that's authentic. And, I like to connect with people. I like to relate to people, and I have compassion for people, not self-pity. There's a big difference, right, between self-pity and, feeling sorry for yourself, for your problems, for what you're going through, and having compassion for you. So compassion is, I accept you. I listen to you. I acknowledge you and I accept you. And from that point, I can share my knowledge, my experience, and my wisdom with you. But it is up to you. It is up to you to to believe it or not, and it's up to you if you want to follow my beliefs or not. But I'm not imposing on anybody. I respect them way too much. People are way too smart. They don't. Sometimes they think they're not, but they are. In their hearts, they have all the answers. Well, we have all the answers in our heart. We're
Yeah.
just always looking for the answer outside ourselves.
Yeah, it goes back to the old saying of when I was teaching metaphysics. We cannot teach anybody anything new. We can only remind them of what they already knew but forgot.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Now, let me add something here real quick. For our listeners, and I've already told Sandra this, so for our listeners, and especially if you're planning or even thinking about going to Sandra's retreat, I suggest it highly, especially if you feel about her just from listening to her voice. As I did in our pre-interview. We were talking about a pre-interview before we started doing the show, and I usually record them. I usually throw them away after I accept the person, but I haven't thrown hers away just yet. And she was talking about there was something that she said in there that she remembered, and I said, yeah, let me show you how long that pre-interview was. It's 2 hours and 5 minutes long, almost 6 minutes long. And she's just very warm, very easy to speak with, but even more so, to tell you how Sandra and I met, I had ran an ad for people with big hearts, and she answered the ad. Now was close to 50, maybe even more people had answered that ad, and Sandra was not at the beginning. She was toward the end. But somewhere in the middle of the end, that's where I found her. And I was just scanning down the page, going from the most recent to the oldest, from the top to bottom. And there was something about Sandra's email, whatever it was, it just stood out. And after I went top to bottom, I came back and I clicked on her and I read it and I said, I got to mark her, and I did mark her in mail. And I just, in my way of doing it, is first come, first serve, so I just started at the bottom and went up. But I already knew something about Sandra. And I said, I want to see what she's really about, because there's something about her that's in the energy of this email that just worked. And when we finally got together and we spoke, like I said, for 2 hours, and just rounding it up by only 16 seconds, 2 hours and 6 minutes, we became fast friends. This woman does speak from her heart, and I feel it's just very genuine. So if you're really considering to go there, if you want to take a recommendation from me, I'd say she would be the person to go to, because coming from the heart means a lot more than just somebody who has a lot of book learning and has a way of taking the book material and turning it into something. When you're coming from experience, that is something, at least in my lifetime, it means a lot. So,
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I have read, a lot. I love to read. And I believe a book can change your life. And actually, a book changed my life back in 2008. And so,
what was the book?
I do love, I do love to read. It has to be the right book, though.
Yeah.
But again, yes, when you speak authentically, it's you impact people's lives more. It goes beyond the words, beyond what your mind is processing. So I like to connect from heart to heart, and that is it's just beautiful when that happens, because you just don't know what that person is looking for at that moment. And sometimes they just need exactly that, a connection. And it goes beyond words. It goes beyond all the advice and all the knowledge that you can give them. That affects them deeply, deeply. And then it has a domino effect. It has a domino effect. So I just love connecting with people this way. So and I will not have it any other way. My whole life I've been a very honest person. Not honest, a transparent person. I speak with the truth. I tell people the truth, whether they want to hear it or not, whether it's tough. I use tough love sometimes, but that is going to help you 1,000 times better than if I just sugarcoat it. And if I just tell you what you want me to tell you, what you want to hear. And so I've done that my whole life, talking to people, guiding them, giving them perspective in terms of their issues, problems, whatever they're going through. I do that innately, and I love doing it. So I feel like I've always been a public speaker without an audience.
Now you've got your audience.
It's like, okay, I've done this on a one-on-one basis, privately, most of my adult life. And so now I'm decided, you know what? It's time. It's time to look for my audience. It's time to get out there and spread my love because this is what I love to do. I don't do it because I'm trying to change the world. I'm done. I'm done thinking that I had a purpose in life, or that, oh yeah, I can change people's lives and I want to affect millions and millions of people. I used to feel that way when I was coaching nutrition. I believed so strongly that I could change people's lives. Well, it's not true, really. It's not true. And because I realized that people don't really like to help themselves. And so, you can be ready, you can have, you can put all the effort and all the work into helping others, but if they're not ready, if they don't want to help themselves, there's nothing you can do. That was big lesson for me to learn. Just because I was ready to help others, it didn't mean that it was going to happen, because it takes two. It takes two.
Yeah, actually, I was wondering, because you're saying this, and it was almost sounding a little contradictory with what you said at the beginning. Yes, we can change the world, but it has to be one person at a time. We're not going to do a stand up in front of the world and hypnotize everybody into something that they didn't want to be involved in the first place. But it's like you said, it takes, and you're saying it takes two. It takes that one person to say, there's something missing, and I need to find out what it is. And you come along at the right time, or somebody else comes along at the right time, and it clicks, and then the two of you come together, and that's something that works. I'm going to tell you something later. I don't want to tell it on the air, only because I've said it. I've given the story about a couple of times, or maybe 3 times already. Unless you ask me to give it, because it's one of those things of you can say it so many times and it just happens that way. But I'll tell you in another way. There's a guy that I met when I was 23 years old. I come up with my old man voice to let you know how long ago that was. Anyway, he and I became fast friends. This was during my younger years, and I was wanting to hitchhike around the country, and I did. So I was up in Tacoma, Washington, just 50 miles south of Seattle, Washington, and I ran across a guy who was from Georgia. And he was basically a derelict, but he was one of the nicest guys that you ever met. He at that time, if I remember correctly, was running away from his own life for a while. And we got into a conversation, and this guy's probably in his late 30s, early 40s. And he sat down to talk with me, who was 23 at the time. And we got into a conversation that lasted a few hours. And by the end of our conversation, he quit smoking, and a few days later, he went back home to deal with what he was running away from.
Oh, wow.
But as you said, it was one of those things where he was looking for an answer, and you show up, and you give him the answers that he's looking for, and he goes, yes, and it clicks, and it works for that person. In other words, you have to, and this is what I'm getting about even with the email that you sent in our conversations before we did the interview, you're living the life that you're talking about, and people know it. They can feel it. And when it's genuine, you will become that magnet for people that are going, I need to talk to that person. I don't know why, but I need to talk to that person. Or I need to listen to that person, whatever. Yeah. And it just goes from there. So it's a wonderful thing that you're doing.
Thank you.
Before we go into a break, there is something that You said a little bit earlier, and I just wrote down my note as in, well, first, I just want to talk about the settings that you're putting your seminar or retreat into. Is people don't understand that, yes, the surroundings makes the difference. Even when I was a child or teenager, people used to ask me why I liked certain kinds of music, and I said, depending on what I'm doing, depends on what I really like to listen to. If I'm trying to relax, I like listening to something like classical music, whatever the case may be. If I'm looking to work, I work here at my desk, I usually put on music that's like lounge or groove music, something that's low but still has a beat to it. In other words, it'll keep me awake but doesn't make me nervous or anxious for anything. And it's just like if you want to go to a club, if you're younger or when you were younger, what do you want to dance to? So you go to a place where you can dance or find dance music. If you just want to sit with friends, what do you play? Sit, friends, talk, have a glass of wine, cup of coffee, whatever the case may be. What kind of music do you put on? So it's the atmosphere that does really work for you. And before we go into the break, you spoke about self-identification.
Yes.
Would you care to elaborate on that for a few minutes?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I can talk for hours on that. It's one of my favorite subjects.
Well, we'll start on it and then we'll have a break and we'll come back and we'll finish the rest of it. How's that?
Yes. Self-identification. I read a beautiful book that I just learned so much from that book, and it's The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And he talks about, this exactly, self-identification. And there's another book that to me speaks about the same things, but in different terms. And it's New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. One of my favorite authors, spiritual teachers. And they talk about, when we're children, we are born. The children are so powerful. Why? Because they are present. They love unconditionally, right? They enjoy everything. They see beauty all around them. They're astonished by the simplest of things, right? Mm-hmm. They laugh unconditionally. They have no worries. They have no stress. Talking about children, 3, 4 years old, even 5 years old. And to me, it's like, that is the true essence of human beings. And so what happens to us? We turn into something completely different when we're adults. Mm-hmm. Completely different, at times scary. So what happens in between? How do we get lost? How do we lose ourselves? How do we lose that essence, that power, that purity, right? What happens? And in my personal journey, the last 10 years of my life, this is what I discovered. I think I found the answer. And, reading these 2 books also helped. And, a big aha moment, a huge aha moment, when I realized that all those 10 years of my life of misery, of self-hatred, of self-abuse, of depression, of anxiety, of feeling trapped, being overweight, in a way, I know that it wasn't my fault.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there.
Yes.
You're going to explain to us about the fault when we come back from our commercial break. So please stay tuned. We'll be right back with Sandra Patino.
I love what Maya Angelou had to say about the power of the spoken words. She said, I quote, Words mean more than what is set down on paper. It takes the human voice to infuse them with deeper meaning, end quote. And that is the reason I made the decision to put my words into an audiobook. So please check out my spoken words in my new audiobook, Your Life, Your Way. The 10 must-have goals to improve your life. It's now available. You can either go to my website at www.coachingbyria.com and purchase it there. You can also download the book from iTunes by going to the link I provided in the show page, or simply go to the iTunes stores and put my name in the search, Coach Ria Wilkie, and you will be able to download the audiobook from there. And I do thank you all for doing so. And if you like to write a review, please do so. And I'm always grateful to be in service. Thank you.
Hi, this is K. William Spencer of Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio. Come and join us every Tuesday and Thursday for enlightening, humorous, and intriguing conversations with my guest, or just a monologue of thoughts that I share, all to help you look at life and your choices differently. For more information, go to YTYRradio.tk. That's YTYRradio.tk. Hi, and welcome back to Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio. I am Kirk Spencer, and we are here with Sandra Patino. She left off with where the fault was and why she was going through all of these problems and issues in her life. So, Sandra, if you will, please continue.
Thank you. So, yes, a big aha moment when I realized that everything that I went through, it was not my fault. And I blamed myself all those years. I hated myself for who I had become. I didn't understand why I was I thought that there was something wrong with me. I thought of going to a psychologist. Seriously, I thought it was my fault. And I started believing everything that people said about me, and it wasn't very positive. I was a very angry person, very, very angry, always defensive, really lost and angry and not present at all, not aware at all. But deep down, behind closed doors, when I was by myself, you cannot escape yourself. No matter what you do, you are always with you. You always go with you.
Yep.
So
wherever you
my
go,
relationship,
there you are.
yes, my relationship with myself was so screwed up. Oh my goodness, so screwed up. And so years later, now that I have I got out of that, and I'm learning, okay, what exactly happened to me? How did I get there? How did I do that? Why did I do it? Because a lot of people are going through this same thing. A lot of people. Now, they're on antidepressants and they use all kinds of things to cope with that pain. I didn't do any of that. I just dealt with the pain.
Yeah.
Cried a lot. Spent weekends watching TV. It's not normal. It's just not normal to live like that. But deep inside, I always heard a voice. When it hurt the most, I could hear this voice inside of me saying, "This is not who I am."
Mm-hmm.
And that voice was always there, and I believed it.
Indeed.
I wanted to believe it. It was the only thing that kept me going, that gave me hope.
Indeed.
It was the only place that didn't hurt me. And now I know that it wasn't my fault. Now I know that I learned to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
I learned to hate myself. I learned to neglect myself, to abuse myself, to blame myself. I learned hatred in ways I never thought it was possible to hate towards myself, towards others. So that was liberating, incredibly liberating, to understand why I had done what I did, why I lost myself, why I lost faith in God, in life, in people, in my everything. So reading these two books that I mentioned
Mm-hmm.
liberated me. I learned about the ego, and I learned about all the beliefs and values and traditions and rules from society, right? From our parents, from media, is a big one.
Learning to conform.
You know,
Yeah.
from our environment,
Mm-hmm.
from our ancestors, from families. Traditions go back generations. And so our parents also learned everything that they taught us. So it's not our parents' fault. We cannot blame your parents either. You cannot blame society. We cannot blame anybody. It's just the way it is.
Yep.
It's just the way it is. But we are not consciously aware. We're not conscious about what's that process. We're born, we go to school, we have expectations, we follow rules. You go to school, you get married, you have kids, you have a job. That's it. Right? And so, yeah, it wasn't my fault. A lot of that was learned, in corporate America, the way I was raised. Many, many things, a lot of influences, a lot of beliefs, my own, and then beliefs from the outside that I learned. And so you put that all together, my goodness, you become a mess. You become a mess. No wonder people are living their lives the way they are.
Yes.
It's not our fault. And this is another thing that was so my liberating to me. I've always been a very independent person. I have a hard time fitting in my whole life because of the way I see life and the way I see people. It's just my perspective in life in general. So I was never a very social person. But now that I understand, oh my gosh, why people behave the way they do, well, that's when the compassion comes in. That's when the acceptance comes in, and as you stop judging everyone around you. Because it's not our fault that we're behaving this way. We are lost within ourselves, and we create this cage. We do. I created my own.
Mm-hmm.
I locked myself in it. I did.
Yeah.
But I didn't know I was doing it. I didn't know I was doing it.
Sandra.
Yes.
I'm listening to you and I'm getting lost in what you're saying, which is a wonderful way. I need to come up to your seminar. Listen, I want to pull the rubber band back a little bit, and we're going to do that slingshot effect here real quick. You're very... You hypnotize me when you speak. There's a couple of things that I want to touch on before we get too close to the top of the hour, which is not that close, but we've got about 20 minutes or so. You were talking about earlier about coaching on weight loss. And tell us a little bit about that, and then we're going to touch on your life before that.
Yes. Coaching on weight loss. I enjoyed myself doing that. As I mentioned, I was determined to change people's lives. And I believed that food can change your life because it changed my life. I mentioned that I was overweight I took my health for granted. I've always been a petite person, very, very petite, and I have an amazing metabolism. So I eat as much as I can, and I never gain an ounce. So I never worried about food. So when I started gaining weight due to the stress, due to the fact that I was not eating enough food because I didn't have time to eat, my job was very demanding. So I put everything before me. And this was where the self-neglect comes in. My emails, my deadlines, my phone calls, my boss, my clients, everything was more important than I was. Because that's what you do. That's what you're supposed to do, right?
Yes.
You don't matter. You don't matter. You get the job done. I don't care how you feel. I don't care what's going on. You get the job done. I learned to do that. And so I gained weight. I messed up my metabolism. I had blood sugar issues. I was my brain was chemically imbalanced. Now I know this. My memory got really fuzzy. I mean, I used to be really sharp and really quick. That went away. So, all kinds of things. I was even at risk of cancer, cervical cancer. And so when I started losing the weight after I read this book that this man recommended to me, I will never forget this man. This is one of the life-changing moments that you have, that you just never forget, ever, ever, ever. This photographer, he looked, I was a producer for an advertising agency. I worked for 15 years in the ad industry.
You just took my next question, so please run with it.
So I met him at a photo shoot, and he was from Miami, and he was glowing and happy and tan. In his late 50s, my goodness, he looked amazing for his age. And I said, how do you do it? How do you smile like that? See, I didn't smile anymore. I didn't know how to smile. And so he had two things. He was smiling and he was healthy. And so I said, please tell me, how did you do it? How do you stay like this? And he said, Sandra, you have to read this book, Fit for Life. He said, this will change your life. That's all he said. He didn't ask me, how I was feeling or what my problems were or how to fix them. Nothing. He just said, this book will change your life. And it did. It did change my life. I read the book. I became a vegan overnight, basically. I don't recommend doing that to people. You really got to know what you're doing. But at that time, it worked for me. And I was willing to do anything to look and feel the way he did. I knew that food was the answer. I didn't believe in diets or pills or crazy things. And I hated working out. I just kept growing and growing. And it was very scary for someone who has always been petite. When you start gaining weight, it's a very traumatic experience, and you don't know how to stop it.
Yeah.
And it's not like I was eating a lot. As I said, I was not eating enough. But that's where the blood sugar imbalance creates,
Yep.
And so I fell in love with food and nutrition, and I'm like, wait a minute, I need to share this with the world. And as I was losing the weight, I started inspiring other people. They started asking me, Sandra, now they were asking me, how did you do it? How did you lose weight? Of course, I became more confident. I was happy. I knew that losing the weight was going to make me happy. Now all my problems were going to go away. Well, my happiness was short-lived. That's why when I was coaching nutrition, I don't believe in diets, because being healthy, it goes beyond a number on a scale. And that is the biggest problem we have. All these diet programs, again, they give you the fish. They don't teach you how to fish. Not to mention, they don't know anything about the quality of the food. That's another issue. So I started coaching people on how to lose weight, but in a very conscious way, in a very holistic way, if you may, from the heart. My message was, geez, take care of yourself. Don't just try to hit a number on a scale. Yeah. That was my big message. And I started asking myself, why do people hurt themselves? Why do they hurt themselves with food in this case? We do it in many, many ways. Food is one of them.
Oh, yeah.
I became fascinated. I'm like, I want to know why we do this. I want to know why we don't pay attention to our food, why we have all these stories. Oh, my mother used to tell me, whatever your story is, oh, my father called me fat, or my teacher, or my friends, or whatever, peer pressure, whatever it is. Again, we're full of stories that we learn. That is not our essence. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I enjoyed coaching. But however, again, I just found a lot of people that were not ready and that they didn't love themselves enough to want to change their lives. And in particularly not the way I was teaching, going beyond the diet, going beyond the number. And so, but I learned so much from that experience about myself. And I wanted to know, how can I fix their brain? How can I fix their mind? If I can just get them to care a little bit. Yeah, good luck to me. Are you kidding me? But I found the answer. Yeah. I found the answer.
Well, we're going to have you do another show, and you can tell us a little bit more about that. In the last 10 minutes of the show, I'm going to take it a little bit different. Now, one of the reasons why I don't practice holistic therapies much anymore is because one woman kind of did it for me. Where I live down here, a woman came up to me and she goes, "Oh, you're a holistic therapist. Can you give me an herb, or can you do something for me to help me to lose weight?" And I looked at her and I said, "Lady, I can tell you how to lose weight without having to spend money." "Really? How can I do it?" I said, "Well, first of all, you need to eat better. Stop eating all the fatty foods. Stop drinking all the sodas," because we say down here refrescos. "Stop drinking Coca-Cola and all the rest of those little refrescos, and drink more water, less fatty foods, like raw fruits and vegetables and stuff like that, and just balance out your diet healthily." "Oh, no, I can't do that. I don't want to do that." "No, can't you just give me something?" And I just want to see, nobody wants to take responsibility for themselves anymore. It's always, "Oh, this tastes good, and I want to go out and party with my friends in the social atmosphere." And since you know where this is, we're going to slingshot all the way back to the point that actually Sandra comes from just about 20 minutes away from where I live right now, outside of Mexico City. So you have about 10 minutes. Tell us about that life and how you went from, I know it's going to be a short synopsis, but that's okay. We're going to do another show one of these days. Give us a little synopsis in about 10 minutes about your life, starting here in Mexico, and up to that point where you became that life coach. Wow. Just the highlights. I know 10 minutes isn't much, but that's okay.
Yeah, I grew up in Mexico City in a very spiritual environment. I grew up meditating and learning about the sacredness of life and the sacredness of human beings. And so that it was a very unusual way to grow up.
Yeah, especially here.
Yes, especially in Mexico. I was raised Catholic, but I didn't like going to church. I'm not a very religious person because I believe in myself now, and I do believe in God, and I love God dearly, deeply. But I don't believe in church per se. I'm speaking from my Mexican, background. Mm-hmm. what's expected of you as someone growing up in Mexico. And so my childhood was quite rough. My mother was very, very hard on us. Very, very tough woman. Very tough woman. I could not express myself. I could not speak up. I had to keep everything to myself. And no matter how hard I tried to do everything well, it was never good enough for her. She never acknowledged us. So that was very interesting, to grow up like that. But again, I learned not to recognize my efforts. And when I was 19 years old, I had the opportunity to move to the States and to go to college. I could have stayed in Mexico and, gotten married and do it. I could have done what everybody does.
Yeah, the usual cultural thing down here.
The usual cultural thing. You live at home until you get married. It's different than, here in the States. But I, being me, I'm a rebel. I'm curious. I seek wisdom. I don't like status quo. So I said, yeah, I'm going to move. I'm going to move to the States. I'm going to go to college. I want to make a difference. I want to stand out. I want to do something different. I don't want to just stay here. I had never been outside, I've never lived outside my home, my temple, my sacred space. It's all I knew. But my heart was telling me it's time to fly. It's time to go. And so I left. My parents got separated when I was very, very young, so I grew up with my mother. So leaving my mother and my siblings was not an easy thing, but I have a heart of a tiger as well, and so I found the strength to go, to leave. And I cried when I said goodbye. I remember I said goodbye to my mother, and I cried like I've never cried before. And I didn't understand why. I mean, yes, I was leaving. I was going to come back. It was not like I was never going to see her again. But deep down, I knew that I was not going to see her again. Something in me, I just knew I was not going to see her again. She was 48, very young. Mm-hmm. And so I left. I moved to Boston. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know anybody. I didn't even know that I was going to end up in Boston. But I did. And I loved it. I loved it there. I went to Emerson College. And about 2 years after I moved to Boston, my mother passed. She had a tragic death. And so, that feeling that I had, knowing that I was not going to see her again, was true. And so I got a phone call from my dad, and he said, I need you to come home. And so I did. He didn't say what had happened. My mother lost her life at home. She was home. She was by herself. And so I went back and to the funeral and everything. So that was rough. It was a tough experience. And after that, I stopped believing in God. That was the beginning of my losing myself. Mm-hmm. I lost myself. I lost my idea of life. I lost what I had learned about life and its sacredness. I was so angry. Why? How could God allow this to happen? I was 21 at the time, and you don't understand anything, you don't understand. And I blamed God for it. Now I know that it wasn't his fault. God had nothing to do with that. So yeah, I lost my mother when I was 21, and I went back to college and just, kept going, graduated with honors. Loved living in Boston. Absolutely a beautiful experience. You just feel very smart there. There's something about the energy in that place. You get there and it's like, oh yeah, you feel smart. No wonder the best colleges in the country are there.
Mm-hmm.
The culture, the people, the energy, the food. It's such a beautiful place. Very, very cold, but
Yeah.
I managed. Coming from Mexico City, it's like, well, that was a rough, a rough thing to get used to.
Yeah, you can get cool
weather.
here, but you get freezing cold up there with ice and snow and.
It's a long winter. It's a long winter in the Northeast,
Oh
but
yeah.
I lived with an American family. All that time, beautiful. They live in Dorchester. I'm still friends with them.
Mm-hmm.
I became like a daughter to them,
Yeah.
basically. And I was immersed in the culture, which is what I wanted. Completely immersed in the culture. They didn't speak a word of Spanish. And so it was great. It was an awesome experience. And then I moved to Houston. I got my job right out of college. I worked at McCann Erickson, one of the largest ad agencies in the world. So I worked there for about 3 years. And my brother, who is very, very close to me, he's younger, 6 years younger. My brother moved in with me. He went to college as well in Houston. And I got a job transferred to Dallas. And so I moved to Dallas with him, with my brother, and I lived in Dallas for 10 years. Mm-hmm. And then I got a job at a Hispanic agency, and that's when things really went downhill for me.
Oh my goodness.
That's when things really got bad. And so 10 years later, here I am in California, following my dream, following my heart, being authentic to who I am, what I have learned, what I have discovered, and spreading my message and really understanding what is it that I really want. Not what I should be doing because it's the right thing to do. No, I really want to know what is it that I want. And so my journey is not over. And, the result of the last 10 years gave birth to this book, The Epic Return. So this book is very dear to me. It's very personal. And I'm so happy that I can share it with the world. My mentor saw it in me. He kept saying to me, Sandra, you are a messenger. You are a messenger. You need to get out in the world. The world needs to hear you.
Yeah, and you're doing it.
And now keep in mind that, remember I told you when I was little, I couldn't speak up, right?
Yeah.
I moved to corporate America, same thing. I couldn't speak up. You're just a number. You don't matter. Especially when I worked at the Hispanic agency. And so for me to come out of my shell, for me to learn to express myself again, the way I've always wanted to, has been epic. And not just finding myself, finding my voice. And what is my message? What is my message? My message is self-love. Self-love, because that's what I learned to do.
Yes.
The last 10 years. So that's I captured all of that in my book. It's not an autobiography. It's just a reflection on the last 10 years of my life and how I got lost, what happens in society, why it's not our fault, and how to recover that power back. And what I do today to honor myself as a human being, beautiful, divine life force that I am.
And that is definitely strong force that I feel with you.
Thank
Sandra,
you.
we're definitely out of time here. But I thank you, and as I said before, you want to continue this at another time, another interview, want to express more, by all means, just let me know. You know how to contact me.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you everyone for being here with us. Sandra has her, let's see, you do have a website, don't you?
Yes. If anybody's interested in joining, buying my book or joining any of my activities, please go to Sandra Patino, Patino, global.com.
So that's Sandra Patino Global, is all one word?
All one word. .com. Correct.
There you go. Alrighty. Sandra, thank you once again for all your inspiration. You got me lost, and it's like, what? And I'm looking at the time, going, we got to go. So anyway, we'll talk more later. Thanks again for everything. And everyone that's listening, please do contact if you find there's something that Sandra has touched in your heart. She's there for you. Thank you. Take care. Be well.
Thank you, William.
Thank you for joining us here on Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio. Please make a note to join us again on our next broadcast. For more information, visit our website at www.ytyrradio.tk. That's www.ytyrradio.tk. Our theme music is Soul Controlled by B.O. Crew under a Creative Commons License 3.0. See our website for more information.